Hi, it's Trish Brennan, and I'm here to record a video today to share a little bit about who I am and why I do the work that I do. I've been having a few nudges from a couple of choice sources of late that are kind of guiding me to share a bit more of my own story about who I am, and so people can see why they can feel safe in my hands, if you like, feel safe working with me, that they can feel trust around my integrity and my ability, my skill, my understanding of the likely situations of people I'm working with. So I'm wanting to, be more visible in order to be able to build that trust with other people. So I'm going to do so as carefully around mentioning of other people, because it's one thing me being willing to share my story, but sharing other people's story might be looked at in a different way. So if I'm hesitant, that's the reason why. So the first thing I want to say is that I'm going to share relevant to the work that I'm doing, primarily focusing on just at the minute. And I want to say that I was in an abusive marriage for 18 and a half years. I am on friendly terms now with my ex and have no wish to embarrass him or to blame him or to have people think he was a bad man or anything like that. What I see is that any relationship between two people or more people is a dynamic. And whilst I always knew that, what I didn't know was how to make it different. How to have a different outcome. So I have great understanding for how patterns develop, and I see that both of us came from broken homes. For want of a better description, both sets of parents were divorced. That there were strong patterns in place already, as there always are for any of us from generations before us, and those patterns get passed down from one generation to the next, hopefully with little tweaks, improvements along the way. But we very much tend to have relationships by default, what we fall into, the kind of relationships and connections we fall into, and we, almost without thinking, in probably most cases, end up remodeling the same sets of, or the same, operating from the same blueprint, let's say. So things that our parents got wrong, likelihood is we'll get them wrong too, because it's just what we know. It's as simple as that. If we didn't see anything alternative to that, then that's the pattern we learned. And it's only when we start to bring awareness to it that we can actually begin to change it. However, in my own situation, I didn't have the awareness then of a different way of being. I just knew that it was living hell. We did not get along for very long. We were very attracted to one another. No two ways about that. But we had fairly standard patterns. His was we were one of. Just let me say that I have a very broad understanding now that all of our relationships are underpinned by the messages of patriarchy, which are all about male dominance, and women and men are affected by that in different ways, or men and women. We're all affected by those dynamics. Inequality, that women are less important than men can do what they want, men can disrespect women have to tolerate it. All these different underpinning principles are hugely damaging, and patriarchy is kind of where they were born, because patriarchy is not about yin-yang imbalance, it's about male dominance, male supremacy. So I want to kind of get that out of the way. So my husband or ex-husband came into the relationship with that old man is dominant conditioning. man is mean and moody, man is, controlling, man makes all the decisions and man makes all the rules. My blueprint was that women are powerless, that, we have to suffer a lot in life, that, we didn't really have any power. And while I've always been intellectually independent, a question asker, a seeker of truth, a challenger of the status quo, when it came to marriage, I was very much caught in that old paradigm of this is what you're supposed to do as a wife, and this is how wives behave. Um, so I would try to constantly change things from a position of not really having anything but the power of my voice. So I could ask for improvement. I could ask for, not to be treated in a certain way. I could ask for him not to model aggression in front of our sons. But that's really all I thought I could do. I didn't really think I had any actual power to stop it. And consequently, the marriage was just really painful. We did have some good times. It's not that everything was bad. It's just that when there is abuse, everything else has an undercurrent of walking on eggshells, because you never know when it's all going to come crashing down around your ears. You never know when there's going to be a mood. You never know when there's going to be some reason for you to start being yelled at or in other ways abused, for things to get crazy out of control. So I very much lived in that paradigm. I was scared of him, I was scared of his temper. He was a big guy, and I'm not small by any means, but, I was scared of him, and that's the truth. There were many times I called the police, because I didn't know what else to do, because things were getting out of hand, because, there were times when he was behaved physically aggressively, and times when I was hurt. Primarily, though, the abuse I suffered was abusive language, verbal, emotional, psychological. There was always the capacity for violence, because there had been times when I was hurt, and times when I was attacked in one way or another. I wasn't beaten up. And I'm not saying that to make that sound somehow minimizing, because any kind of abuse is just totally not acceptable. But maybe it's slipping through in my language that I protected him from that truth to some degree. I really found it hard to say, this is abuse. And I did actually go and have some sessions with Women's Aid, visits there, and when I was in dire straits with it, no idea what to do, because it was just too difficult. And that in those times, I would sit with somebody and somebody would say, you know what, this is abuse, and I couldn't say it. I couldn't acknowledge it. And we had 5 courses of sessions with Relate over 18 and a half years. And for me to come out and actually say what was going on, I just could not do it. I couldn't make myself say those words. And there were different things that were happening that, I was finding incredibly difficult to live with. But I couldn't say it. I couldn't make myself utter those words, even when I was sat with a counsellor. So it was really difficult. So what happened was, I see that we both came from these separate but very similar backgrounds, where he's been given a blueprint of what manhood is. I've been given a blueprint of what womanhood is. And we brought our own individual stories to it, and consequently we were in a mess. And while I was always striving to unravel it, to talk, to explore how we can change it, for him it was always too deep. I'm not, he didn't have the same commitment that I did, and there's no two ways about that. And eventually I ended up leaving. So the work that I do around domestic abuse is what I struggled with was finding the help that I needed. Someone that was honest, someone that would challenge. One counsellor was a man. And that one counsellor came the very nearest to challenging abusive behaviour. And even then, you know, I guess there are protocols they have to work within, you know, that we don't use certain language and what have you. What I was picking up from him was that I used to be just like you and, you know, angry. And my ex was always angry. There was always a threat of him blowing up. And it just underpinned it. It's like an undercurrent, like I said, you know, you're always frightened that it's going to go off again anytime, so you've got to be careful what you say and be careful what you do. And it's no way to live. It really isn't any way to live, and it's not nice for the children of the family either, because they're just as much under that threat of things blowing up as you are. So I couldn't find that help that I needed, and I felt the desperation of it. I did go on a well-known program when I was writing mine just to see what else is out there. I hadn't done a program before, but I did a well-known program. I'm not going to name the name of it. But what I found is that program is helpful in that when you're in that gaslighting situation where somebody else is telling you there's nothing wrong with me, it's you, there's something wrong with you, you I don't know, you're stupid or whatever, you know, that your behaviour is weird or you're too dramatic or whatever kind of language that you know, that gaslighting comes along with that. So you can end up, you know, questioning yourself, and I did for the longest time. Is it me? I should be able to cope with this. I should be able to put this right. I should be able, it was always on me. I always took it on as my responsibility to change things and fix things. And there was no way that he was taking any responsibility for his behaviour. It would always be, you make me angry, or, you know, it's your fault. It was always my fault, you know, and I was bogged down by that. I didn't know how to change it or to escape from it, until the point where I could not take it any longer. I fell out of love and I had to leave. And then I started to think about, you know, I'd love to be able to help other women who are going through what I'm going through, who can't get the help, because everywhere you go, it's just not giving you what you need. None of it helped me at the end of the day. Nothing helped. All the help that I received, or all the help that was available to me, what made available to me, really relate and you know, going to see the health visitor or get help from the doctor. You know, we did that one time, and he was supposed to take beta blockers to, you know, level him out. Now, I don't actually approve of drugs anyway, in that way. I think, you know, we're far too addicted to the doctor. But at the time, you know, it was a hope that if his mood would level out a little bit, maybe we could kind of fix things to some degree. But it never happened. But I couldn't get that help, and I wanted to help other women because I know how desperate it feels to be in that situation of feeling utterly powerless. Your children are growing up around it. You don't feel you're doing the right things. You have no freaking idea how to do it right because you're so... there's a thing that comes to my mind. I'm a very visual person, and sometimes I'll get pictures in my mind when I'm talking that kind of really explain something in a perfect way to me. And I picture, if anybody's ever been to Blackpool, I don't even know if it's still there now because it's a long time since I've been, but there used to be this big kind of ship that was right close to the entrance, the main entrance, and the fun house was behind it when that used to be there, and that laughing clown that looks a bit weird, a bit scary. But this ship that you would go in, it was like a crazy house, and, you know, the floors moved in opposite directions, and the stairs, you'd go up the stairs and they were kind of like this. You couldn't get your balance. That's what it was like being in my marriage. I could never get my balance, and that's what happens in domestic abuse and gaslighting. It's like this, constantly keeping you off balance, so you don't know what day it is at the end of, you know, you're so confused by it all, and just trying to stay level that it messes with your head in a big way. So I wrote my course because of that, because of my experience. So going back and thinking what was going on for me, and what I needed to do to fix me, never mind the marriage, to fix me. And that's where my course came from. It was the learning I'd done and on how to change my situation as an individual person in my own right. And my course is about that, how to do that for you. It was a very deeply thought out course, very linear process. Since sussed out about me is I learn best that way. You know, do this, do this, do this, do this. It's like a linear process of learning. Excuse me. So that's how my course was written. So if you come on this course with me, you'll find out that it's going to ask some tough questions of you and ask you to go within and explore. But until you develop those insights about yourself and your own patterns, you will never change anything. You'll go from one domestic abuse situation into another. So you have to kind of do this work in order to be able to recognize those patterns that are at play out of your awareness. It's fun to do. It's deep work. Sometimes it's, you know, there are going to be tears because you're going to be revisiting things that you know, unhappy memories. But it's a very profoundly helpful course in terms of moving you forward. And it's not like counselling. It really isn't. It's a process, a very logical, linear process that helps you as it helped me. What did I have to do in order to get me in a position where I would never go into an abusive relationship again? So that's where it comes from, the domestic abuse. The same with boundaries, really. I have a boundaries course. That all came from my marriage experience as well, and to some degree my family experience with friendships, the kind of people I was drawn towards. So that's it for now. I'm going to leave it there. It's already just gone 17 minutes, so I hope that was more interesting for you than it was for me. You know, I don't feel particularly comfortable sharing my story in a conversation. Yeah, great, but sitting here saying this is me in my life feels really unnatural to me. So, you know, forgive me if it's been a bit kind. You know, I just hope it's given some insight that, you know, will give you confidence if you're considering doing some work that can change things for you and move you away from domestic abuse and move you back towards your power and to having great self-esteem again. So thank you for listening if you did, and enjoy the rest of your evening. Bye for now.